All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome everyone. My name is Tracy Fitzpatrick and I'll be your moderator today. Thank you so much for joining us here at Netcom Learning, a market leader in promoting lifelong learning, training, and talent development solutions. We are very excited to host today's technical webinar, Tools to Secure, Troubleshoot, and Manage Windows 10. Presenting today's topic is Neil Tucker. Neil has over 20 years of experience in the IT industry as a network administrator, technical trainer, and courseware author. His experience deploying and supporting Windows and Linux operating systems and server applications helps him to offer practical advice and suggestions during training classes. Now, please bear in mind that this is an overview of a very robust topic. We offer a collection of technical and business courses that can be tailored towards your specific requirements. And if you are interested in a further discussion, you can make an appointment with our learning consultants through our website at netcomlearning.com. Today's session is also being recorded, so you'll get free access to the recording in the next 24 hours via email. And now I'll give you a quick overview of the logistics before we get started. To start with, you do have the option to adjust the window size to your liking. Simply hit the Escape key and find the Zoom button on the top left corner of your GoToWebinar viewer. Everyone has been muted except for our presenters. Please feel free to submit any questions you have for the presenters here in the questions pane, and we will address them at the end of the session. A PDF copy of today's slides are also in the handout section of your GoToWebinar viewer. And in just a few moments, I'm going to pass it off to Neil, who will be presenting today's topic. Neil, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Tracy, and welcome everyone to our webinar this afternoon. Regardless of where you are, whether it's afternoon or morning, we're glad that you were all able to make it here. As Tracy mentioned, our topic this afternoon is going to be pretty straightforward. We're going to be delving a little bit into Windows 10 and discussing it from three different standpoints: troubleshooting, management, and also, more importantly, security. That's going to be our first topic. So before we delve into that and before we talk about the tools, we just have a little bit of housekeeping to take care of. Now, Tracy already took care of some of that for me. Thanks for letting everybody know about the environment, Tracy. Just a quick reminder, remember, as we go along, if you have any questions, please feel free to let us know what they are in the chat room. We will make time at the end of our session to address the questions that you have. Now, who is this webinar for? Who's going to benefit from the next 45 to 50 minutes of our presentation? Well, as I said before, three specific aspects of Windows 10 that we'll be talking about this afternoon: security, management, and troubleshooting. If you work in an environment where any of those three topics is of concern to you, then this webinar will definitely benefit you. And as I said before, we're going to focus first of all on security, because that's on pretty much everybody's mind now. And the interesting thing is, there are built-in tools already there that are a part of the Windows 10 operating system that can make the system more robust, more secure, that a lot of people don't take advantage of. So in particular, we'll be focusing on one or two tools that you can use, one or two things that you can do when you go back to the office that might make your system a lot more secure than it is right now. And how will you benefit from our presentation? Our demonstrations, I think, are the biggest strong suit of the webinars that we do here. You will be able to actually see me demonstrate the things I'll talk about. So when I talk a little bit to you about BitLocker Encryption, for example, you will see me actually turning on BitLocker on my computer, and I'll do it in a way that you can actually repeat when you go back to your environment. And when we talk a little bit about PowerShell, I'll also do some PowerShell demonstrations for you as well to show you things that you can do on your own when you go back either home or to your office to do those things. We also have some free offers for those of you who are here. We have a PowerShell tutorial that's normally a part of the 50331D course. That's the Windows Client course. It covers Windows 7, Windows 8, and Windows 10. And it comes with a built-in PowerShell tutorial, which everybody in attendance here will get at the end of this session. One additional point about that tutorial, it has been recently updated. Some of you might know that there have been some improvements in Windows 10, and one of those improvements has been in the area of PowerShell. So we also updated the tutorial as well. There are 20 additional commands we discussed in there that were not available before that you'll be able to take advantage of in the tutorial we'll give you at the end of this session. All right. So we have a quick survey that we want everyone to take part in, if you don't mind. We want to know why you are here and how we can help you. So are you here mainly to learn about Windows 10 security, Windows 10 troubleshooting, Windows 10 management, or are you here mainly to find out more about Netcom training? All right. So if you could let us know your main concern, if the survey window doesn't pop up, please put your answer in the chat window. All right. So you can just type security, troubleshooting, management, training, any of those in the chat window if the survey window does not come up. And we appreciate you being able to do that for us. Thank you very much. Okay. Now let's get into it. Here's a quick layout of what we'll be doing in just a few minutes. When we discuss the tools in Windows 10 that can help us to better secure, troubleshoot, and manage the desktop that you guys are now using, as I said before, we'll be doing demonstrations of those tools. Those demonstrations are taken from lab exercises in the 50331D course. For those of you who haven't upgraded to Windows 10 as yet, if you're still using Windows 8, or I've heard there's still a lot of people out there still using Windows 7. As I mentioned before, the course is built for all of you, whether you're on Windows 7, 8, or 10. And these tools that we will be discussing will work on Windows 7, Windows 8, and Windows 10. Every last tool that we show you or demonstrate today can be used on any of those three operating system solutions. And we'll give you some more information about the course layout a little bit later on and the options you have in customizing it. All right. So without further ado, let's start off by talking about our first tool for securing a Windows 10 system, and that's going to be BitLocker. Now, for those of you who have not heard about BitLocker before, quick introduction. It's a method of encrypting your hard drive to make sure that if you lose your computer, no one will be able to get information off it. That's the whole idea behind BitLocker. Now, for those of you who have done drive encryption before on Windows computers, you might be familiar with EFS. All right? EFS is still available in all versions of Windows desktops and servers, but that normally encrypts only on a file or folder level. BitLocker encryption protects the whole hard drive. It encrypts everything on the hard drive, protecting all of your data automatically. This type of encryption also works with flash drives as well. So if you have flash drives that you travel around with that have very important and confidential information, what we're going to discuss here can also be used to protect them as well. And our demonstration will show you how to do that as well. Now, implementing BitLocker can be a little bit cumbersome in some environments. And the reason is not because of Microsoft. The reason is mainly because a lot of corporations might have some trouble coming up with a standard for doing this. One big concern I've heard a few times is that a lot of people are concerned that once a drive is encrypted and I have all of these people traveling all over the world, what happens if I need to get back that computer but I'm not able to decrypt the information on it? Let's say the person gets fired or we lose their password or something. How do we get back into that hard drive to protect the information? There's one very easy answer to that problem: group policy. All right? Take advantage of your Active Directory environment to apply policies across all of your computers, Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10, apply it to all of them, and enforce a rule of applying recovery keys or storing recovery keys in Active Directory. It's that simple. You can control all of this from a single location, from a single domain controller. Simply force every single computer, the minute it turns on BitLocker, to store the recovery key that can be used to decrypt the hard drive inside of Active Directory. That way, administrators always have the ability to decrypt those drives. It's very simple and it's very easy to do. But this is not a Windows Server class, it's Windows 10, so we won't delve into that. But that's something that you can definitely delve into a little bit more with your IT administrators using group policy to protect BitLocker recovery keys. For those of you who are venturing into the Microsoft Azure environment, one recent improvement Microsoft made is that you can now implement that by means of Azure Active Directory. So in the same way that you can use Active Directory within your intranet environment on a regular Windows server to protect BitLocker, that capability is now available with Azure Active Directory as well. All right. Now all of that sounds pretty good, but how do we actually go about doing this? How do I turn on BitLocker for my computer? And when would you do it? Take this scenario, take this particular case. You have a number of people on your sales team. They travel all over the world. They have a lot of confidential information on their computers, contracting information, information about your products. That information has to be protected, and you've decided to implement BitLocker. Now, as I said before, you don't have to worry about losing the recovery key. If they are a part of your environment and your domain admin has turned on that capability in group policy, the minute you turn on BitLocker, those keys are protected. So how do you protect the hard drives of all of those salespeople traveling all over the world? Well, let's go ahead and turn on BitLocker, and I'm going to demonstrate that on a virtual machine I have right here. And let me show you the GUI way of doing it by means of the graphical user interface. If I go to the hard drive, or any of the drives on this computer, and I right-click on one of them, there's the option right there to turn on BitLocker. Now, if you have hundreds of computers of 100 different salespeople all over the world, this can get a little bit cumbersome, right? Doing it this way for each and every single computer. But if you implement this by means of group policy, sorry, not group policy, but PowerShell, then this becomes a whole lot easier to do. So that's the way that we are going to do it. So I hope you guys can read these letters right here. Let's make them a little bit bigger. All right, hopefully that's a little bit easier to read. So we're going to do a few things right here. First of all, we're going to verify the drives on our computer. All right, and I'm going to turn on BitLocker Encryption for my E drive right here. So let's assume that this is where we are going to be storing all of our confidential data on my E drive. All right, so I verify the size of it and how much space is used upon it. Not a lot of space being used right there, right? Now let's take a look at our existing BitLocker configuration. And as you can see, I have my C, D, E, and F drives, and all of them are fully decrypted. So as it stands right now, I don't have encryption turned on any of the computers or any of the hard drives on my computer. We're going to change that right now. I'm going to create an encryption key, all right, and I'm going to use that key to enable encryption for my E drive. Now, before I do this, notice a few of the options that I'm using right here. I'm using AES 256-bit encryption. I'm also using a new option called used space only. This comes in really handy. If I'm encrypting a 10, let's be outrageous, so let's say a 10 terabyte hard drive, do I want BitLocker to waste time encrypting the whole hard drive even though I only use a small amount of space on it? Probably not, right? You want to save some time. So what do? you turn on BitLocker, but you use the used space only option. That way it only encrypts the space that's being used for actual file storage. That way you can turn on BitLocker encryption a whole lot faster. So in our example right now, what's going to happen is that instead of trying to encrypt the whole hard drive, all 22 gigabytes, all 22 gigabytes, what's going to happen, which is going to be a whole lot faster, it's only going to encrypt the 0.46 gigabytes of space, because that's the only amount of space that my resources is using up, right? I'm also going to tell it to use password encryption. Normally, you might want to use some kind of hardware encryption like TPM, but since we're working with a virtual machine here, that's not available. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. There's my key, and I'm going to enable BitLocker encryption for my E drive. And remember, because I use the space only option, it's going to do it very quickly. All right, so it's already encrypted 10%. And let's use the get BitLocker volume option again. There it says encryption in process for the E drive. Let's do it one more time and it should be done by now. There we go. So now my E drive is fully encrypted. Do I have to change the way that I now interact with that drive? No. All right. All of this takes place transparently. So if I open up my drive and go to my E drive, and I want to work with these resources, I work with them the way that I normally would. The encryption takes place in the background for me. If I ever lose this, let's say laptop or computer, and somebody else tries to get in, unless they are also able to hack my credentials of my encrypted hard drive, then they won't be able to see the data. The normal encryption tools that they use to hack the hard drive directly to retrieve usernames and passwords and so on, that won't be available to them. They won't be able to do that. All right, so that's how you enable encryption. And if I now want to turn it off for some reason, let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to get my BitLocker configuration for the E drive, and I'm going to disable BitLocker encryption. All right, and that also takes place very quickly as well, because remember I use the space only option. Now, one area where this has come in really handy, as I mentioned before, is when working with flash drives. If you store very important information on your flash drives, you can use BitLocker to go to protect those drives. Now, how would you do something like that? Now, let me just show you my drive configuration very quickly. Whoops. There we go. All right. And on my computer, I have a C, a D, and an E drive. And what I'm going to do now is plug in a flash drive that's going to become my F drive. So just pay attention to the screen. And we'll give it a second here. And let's just go ahead and refresh it. There it is, and there's my flash drive right there. Now, I want to enable BitLocker encryption for this flash drive that I might use on multiple computers in my environment. All right, so how do I now protect my flash drive? Well, the same commands that I used a while ago to protect a hard drive can also work here as well. So I'm going to get my drive information for the F drive. Notice it's 15 gigabytes in size, but it doesn't have a lot of information on it. And that's because I want to do this exercise very quickly. We don't have time to spend everything on BitLocker. So let's get the BitLocker volume configuration right now. And you'll notice that none of my drives under volume status, I'm sorry, let's make this a little bit bigger. All right, so hopefully everybody can read that. None of my drives are encrypted right now. All of them have a status of fully decrypted. So let's go ahead now and encrypt my F drive, my flash drive. And notice that I'm using the use the space only option again so that I can do this very quickly. Let's go ahead and turn that on to encrypt my flash drive. It's not going to be as fast as a hard drive, of course, but it should do it very quickly. Okay. There we go. All right. So let's go ahead and get the volume encryption information again. All right, and everything is fully encrypted except for my F drive, and it says encryption in progress. That's the current status of my F drive. There we go. All right, so now that my F drive is 100% encrypted. And the same way I was able to access my hard drive before, I can now access my F drive. And all the information is accessible to me. Now, what if I want to use this drive or use this flash drive in another computer? Let's go ahead and eject the drive. So we're simulating removing the drive here and then reattaching it to another computer. And notice what happens when I do that. Oops. It says access to it is denied, and it's giving me the option right here to unlock drive F. Unlock drive F. What I have to do now is put in the password that I used to encrypt it. And if I enter the wrong password, of course, it won't give me access. If I enter the right password, then it gives me access to my encrypted information on that drive. So I can now take this flash drive with me and use it on any computer in my environment. All the while, if I forget it in another person's computer, of course, then that can be a problem, right? Because I've already put in the password. If I lock my screen and somebody else logs into that station, they won't be able to access it unless they have the password that I used to encrypt the information. All right? And then once I'm done with this, if I want to disable BitLocker encryption, I do it the same way that I did before on the other drive. And we don't have to wait on that. We can just move on for the sake of time. Now let's talk about another really useful security feature which a lot of organizations don't take full advantage of: direct access. Direct access has actually been around for a long time. Windows 7, Windows 8, and Windows 10, all three of them are capable of taking advantage of direct access, which is an improvement on using VPN client configurations. Quick tutorial here, 30-second tutorial on the difference between VPN and direct access. Traditionally, let's say 10 years ago, the best way to securely get somebody into a network if they were at home was to use a VPN client configuration. That person would somehow connect to the internet, and then over the internet they would create an encrypted tunnel by means of which they would access resources on my network. So it was a one-way communication channel that they would use to access information in my environment. All right? Direct access is an improvement on VPN because it allows two-way communication. The computer, even though I might have it from home, even though I might be in a sales location in Timbuktu, once the computer is connected via direct access, it treats the machine as if it's actually a part of the intranet environment. So the same protections and configurations you can apply to local computers, you can also apply to direct access client computers as well. So do you want to apply software updates, security changes to the computer? All of that can be applied to the computer because it's a two-way communication channel. So not only is it more secure, but you also get to manage it a whole lot better as well. Another big benefit of direct access configuration: the connection between the computer and your intranet environment is created before you even log on to the machine. So the computer itself is where direct access is configured, and it actually runs the configuration protocols needed to make the machine a part of the domain. So when you are ready to log on, it's as if the computer was already a part of your networking environment. So you have the same logon process, the same way you log on as if you were on the intranet is the same way you would log on to that machine regardless of where you are in the world, as long as direct access is configured on it. So why would I use VPN instead of direct access? There is none. There is absolutely no reason why an organization should use direct VPN configuration instead of direct access. Well, maybe if you still have client computers that don't support it, but that would mean that you would have a computer that's running an operating system older than Windows 7, because Windows 7 supports direct access. So maybe it's time for an upgrade if you have client computers that do not support direct access. All right. Now we don't have a demonstration for direct access, but very quickly, just to let you know, if you wanted to configure this in your environment, it's also pretty easy as well by taking advantage of PowerShell. Here are some examples of the PowerShell command that you would use to configure direct access. Most of the work is done in Active Directory by the administrators. It's simply a matter of telling the client, hey, join the network, get this configuration information from the domain controller, and then it's good to go. All right. But all of the heavy lifting, 99% of the work is done by IT administrators on the server side. On the client side, on your Windows 10 computer, you're simply going to be running, in most cases, this is the only command you need to run. All right. Set DA client experience configuration. Tell it the name of the group policy component, which has the configuration, and that's all it takes to configure the client computer. Okay? All right. Now here is a very underestimated troubleshooting tool in Windows 10. I'm still surprised how many people haven't heard about it, but it's a very useful tool, not only for troubleshooting for IT administrators, but in some cases even developers. If you have in-house developers in your organization, they might actually love taking advantage of the features of this tool as well. What does it do? Well, on Windows 7 and 8, the name of this product was the Problem Steps Recorder. In Windows 10, Microsoft removed the problem part and it's now just called the Steps Recorder. It's the identical tool. It's exactly the same tool. So the way you would configure it on any of those three platforms is going to be identical. What does it do? It records the steps needed to repeat a problem whenever you're troubleshooting an issue. Quick example, all right? You are working in your IT department and a user calls you up and says, Neil or Tracy, whoever you are, please help me, my Internet Explorer is not working properly. Ever since these add-ons were added on to the IE configuration, my browser has been acting all funny and I need you to reconfigure it for me. All right? And I'm having XYZ as a problem. If you want to actually see the problem the end user is doing, they can run the problem steps recorder and then perform the operations, and then when the error message comes up, the problem steps recorder records all of those steps needed in order to get to the error or the problem that the user is having. The tool saves a record of everything the user did to repeat the problem in a archive file, a zip file. They email that file to you, and then you can see exactly what the user went through. Another really useful feature of the steps recorder is that it records detail of what might be going on under the hood within that application as well. Information that might be useful to a developer if you are having a problem with an in-house app that was developed within your organization. All right? So it's a very, very handy tool, and I think it's a shame that not too many people know about it, especially since it's been around for such a long time. So if you've never used the problem steps recorder before, if you have no idea what it does or have never seen it, here is your chance. We're going to do a demonstration for you. All right? Now, let's go ahead and turn our scenario that we just described on its head. What we're going to do now is we're going to pretend that you are the IT troubleshooter, and the person has already told you the problem, and you have come up with a solution. What you're going to do now is use the same tool the problem steps recorder to record the steps the user should perform on their computer to solve the problem. All right, so the same tool that recorded the problem, we're going to also use that same tool to record the problem as well. So to start the problem steps recorder, I can run PSR, even though it's called a steps recorder in Windows 10. You still type PSR as in problem steps recorder to run it. So we type PSR and there it is right there, my steps recorder. Now before we start using it, let me just show you a few things here in its configuration. If I go to settings, it lets me know that by default this tool only records 25 screens or 25 steps. And then if you have more steps than that, it starts deleting the oldest ones. If I'm going to be recording more steps than that, let's say it's a really complex problem, I might up the number of screen captures that I want to capture. Now I'm also going to give it a file name, and I'm going to call it IE reset. That's the name I'm going to give it. And by default, it puts it on the desktop, so we leave that there. If I wanted to save it somewhere specific, I would click the browse button and I would save it someplace else. So I click OK. Okay, I guess it wants me to tell it exactly where to put it. All right, there it is, desktop. And then IE reset is going to be the name of the file. Click OK. All right, good. And I'm going to start recording my steps right now. So I click Start, Record, and now everything I do, every click I make, everything I type, it can now be recorded by the problem steps recorder. So I'm now going to open up Internet Explorer. All right, takes me to the home page right there. And I'm going to go to Tools, and then I'm going to go to Internet Options. Now, not everybody has the menu bar configured in the Internet Explorer. So I'm going to take an advantage of a really nice feature here in the problem steps recorder called Add Comment. And I'm going to add a comment for my end user to let him know that in order to open up the menu bar, he can press Alt F to open up the menu bar. And then from there, he can go to Tools. Yeah, normally I'd put a better description than this, but for the sake of time, that's all we'll do right now. And then I want him to go to Advanced, and then I'm going to tell him to reset his Internet Explorer settings. Delete all personal settings, reset, close, and then close Internet Explorer after that. That's it. Now, if I wanted to do some housekeeping in here that I didn't want recorded as a part of the problem steps recorder, I could use the pause option, all right, to pause it and then do whatever I want to do. And then when I'm ready to start again, I'll click resume. And then when I'm ready to stop, I stop recording, all right? And notice what it did? It created my file for me right there, my archive file, iereset.zip. So now I can close the problem steps recorder. So all I have to do now is just email this file to my end user, tell him to open it, and follow the instructions. Now what are those instructions going to look like? Let's open up our archive file. Notice that it creates an MHT file for me right there. I can open up in my web browser. Let's close that one down. And this is what it looks like. Now, all he has to do is click on View the Recorded Steps, and then he can go through the steps that I did one by one. So what was the first thing that I did? Left click on Internet Explorer button. That's the first thing I did, right? Then I click Next, and I close down that window. Now this screen I would probably take out. I would have probably paused and then removed the screen because he really doesn't need this screen right here. Click Next. And then on the home page, I would click on Tools. There it is. Left click on Tools menu. Next. And right, and then go to Internet Options. So left click on Internet Options. That's what it says at the top. And then this is where I put my comment. So normally my comment should have probably gone up further. This should be closer to the beginning to remind him that he can use Alt F to open up the menu bar and then go to Tools. But this is just to show you very quickly what you can do with the Problem Steps Recorder to help a user troubleshoot and fix a problem very easily. These things are so easy to work with that you might even create tutorials with them. Is there a constant issue that your users have? They're always having a certain problem. Maybe a tool like this can be used to very quickly create a tutorial for them. Although there are better ways of doing it, but this one is free and comes with Windows 10, so might as well take advantage of it. And let me go all the way back to the beginning. I want to show you another interesting option that we could take advantage of as well. There we go, right? There's an option right here at the beginning of the MHT file. Review the additional details. And what this does, it breaks down everything I did into steps that the person can read. It takes out the pictures, which makes it a little bit easier to read. And it also puts in additional details about the application and what's going on under the hood that might be useful. Now, in the case of Internet Explorer, might not be a big deal, but in the case of an in-house application, if a developer is trying to troubleshoot a problem that a user has, this kind of detail might come in really handy for your developers when they're troubleshooting problems with applications on Windows 10. So that's another very handy tool to take advantage of as well. Ooh. All right, now let's go ahead and move on. Let's talk about another tool, and this one is called Troubleshooters. This is something that I'm sure that 99% of us have used. You might not have been aware that you were using a Windows troubleshooter, but it's so much a part of the Windows environment right now that we use it without even thinking about it. What are these Windows troubleshooters? These are built-in tools that can automatically fix an issue when you're trying to do something but the operating system or the computer is not able to do it. Have you ever tried connecting to the internet before? Maybe when you were on the road and a pop-up screen within Windows automatically came up and asked you to test DHCP or test your connection to the internet service provider? That's an example of a Windows 10 troubleshooter. And this is another feature that has been around for a long time as well. Not both, but Windows 7, 8, and 10, all of them use troubleshooters. All right? Some of them are initiated automatically when you come upon certain problems. Some of them can actually be initiated by the end user themselves. They can actually turn on or enable these troubleshooters. If you want to, now this is where it gets really interesting. If you want to, in addition to the troubleshooters that are built into Windows 10, you can create your own. The Windows 10 SDK, the software development kit, which is free from Microsoft, allows you to build your own troubleshooters using as your underlying code PowerShell. All right? So you don't have to be a .NET developer or a programmer. If you learn the basics of PowerShell, you can build your own troubleshooters for Windows 10 or for your other operating systems. And this is another really interesting exercise that's also available as a part of the 50331 course as well. All right. Now we have a demonstration where we show you how to use the built-in troubleshooters. And as I said before, they are automatic, but you can also initiate them there yourself as a user. So we're going to go to the control panel, and then we'll go to System and Security. All right, and there's an option here under Security and Maintenance for Troubleshoot Common Computer Problems. All right, so these are the troubleshooters that come by default with your Windows operating system. You can troubleshoot problems with programs. Maybe you have an old program that was written for Windows Vista, and you need it to run on Windows 10. There's a built-in troubleshooter that can walk you through the process of getting it to behave better in the Windows 10 environment. Hardware and sound, troubleshooting problems with your devices. Network and internet, this is the one that most of us use most of the time without even realizing it. And also system and security settings. there are troubleshooters for that as well. And if I want to add my own, as we mentioned before, all you need to do is just download the free software development kit from Microsoft, learn a little bit about PowerShell, and you can add your own troubleshooters in here. Let's take another example, and I'm going to mention this again because from my own experience, this is where most of these problems come from. But you have your sales team again, not their fault, but they're using their computers on the road when they go out to do their jobs, of course, and issues come up with their devices. They might have trouble connecting to your network or using resources on your intranet. You can build troubleshooters which automatically fix those problems. Because here's what invariably happens. You have one salesperson who has a problem, and the others invariably might have the same issue. All right. So if you build a troubleshooter and build it into Windows 10, deploy it into Windows 10 using group policy, all of them now have that capability of running the same code to fix the same problem. All right. And it's a part of their operating system when you deploy it that way. So it's a great way of customizing the way that Windows 10 works for the end users in your environment and fixing and managing their problems. Now there's one more topic we're going to discuss before we close off, and we've actually already touched on it quite a few times. We're going to delve into the benefits of learning and using PowerShell. At the end of this webinar, each of you will be given a free tutorial that teaches you the basics of PowerShell if you've never used it before. Now, this is mainly going to be of use to IT people. If you work in an HR capacity and you don't do a lot of desktop work, this is a tool that you might give to your to the people in your IT department, since they already have some experience working with the operating system. You don't require a lot of programming knowledge to use it. In fact, it was designed to replace common command line tools which most IT people already know how to use. But PowerShell is a lot more powerful. PowerShell can do everything that I normally would do from the command line with DOS or Linux, but it also has access to COM, WMI, and more importantly, to .NET components. Pretty much every application that Microsoft builds, Exchange, SQL Server, SharePoint, all of them are built on top of .NET, right? If I learn PowerShell, not only am I learning how to control the Windows operating system, I'm also learning, because I have access to the .NET components, how to control any Microsoft-built application. So I can use my PowerShell knowledge and tools to manage SQL Server, to manage SharePoint, to manage services on my Windows servers like DHCP, DNS. Anything Microsoft can be managed and controlled with PowerShell if you take the time to learn how to use it. And it is not that difficult to learn. So let's do a quick demonstration since time is running away from me. Just to show you, I just want to give you guys an idea of some of the things that you can do with PowerShell. Now, before we use the PowerShell to enable and disable BitLocker encryption, that's a simple example of using it. Something else that I did recently, and I thought this was a great project, and we'll be coming out with something on this soon, hopefully next month. But we can now use PowerShell to build virtual machines in an Azure environment. Just to give you a quick idea of how this came up. Microsoft now allows you to build your own virtual machines in Microsoft Azure, which means over the internet, I can, if I want to, in 10 minutes or less, build a Windows 10 machine and make it accessible over the internet. Now, wouldn't it be nice if I could do something like that programmatically, for example, through PowerShell, and customize and deploy something like this? That's what I did. And actually, here's the script that I used to do that. All right. If I run this script, I can actually create not only a Windows 10 computer, all right, but I got a little bit ambitious, and I also used it to build a domain controller as well, a Windows Server domain controller. So these lines of code right here allow me, in the space of 15 to 20 minutes, in an Azure environment to build a Windows 10 client and a Windows Server 2016 machine. I just run the script, walk away, and when I come back, my machines are ready for me. Very interesting use of PowerShell that Microsoft is making available to us. But as I said before, pretty much anything that you do with a Microsoft product can now be done via PowerShell. All right? So if it's something as simple as managing a desktop computer, configuring the hard drive, making sure you turn on encryption, making sure that you disable certain security resources, that can be done. Or if it's in an Azure environment or managing Azure Active Directory resources, anything Microsoft can be managed with PowerShell. And if you take the time to learn it, you can basically control anything in a Microsoft environment. So hopefully you guys will make good use of the tutorial, which Tracy will give you at the end of our session, which is coming up very quickly. Okay. Now let's summarize very quickly. All right. Windows 10, it took a little while to catch on, but 2017 is going to be a big year for Windows 10. At this point in time, Microsoft says that half of all Windows clients are now Windows 10. There are some people that are still resistant to it, holding on to their Windows 7 machines, Windows 8 machines, and dare I say even Windows XP. But we've reached a tipping point, and more and more people are now deploying Windows 10. If I want to secure my Windows 10 machine, there are some very easy ways of doing it. Simple tools like BitLocker, taking advantage of direct access and getting rid of VPN configurations. If I want to troubleshoot problems on my Windows 10 client computers, taking advantage of tools like the PowerShell, not PowerShell, but the Problem Steps Recorder. That's a good way of troubleshooting problems on your machine. If you're managing resources, PowerShell is one of the most powerful management tools that Microsoft has made available for IT staff in a very long time. It has a lot of power and it's worth taking advantage of. And everything that we've talked about here today, all of the tools for troubleshooting, managing, and securing your resources, BitLocker, direct access, PowerShell, troubleshooters and creating them. All of these skills you will learn by taking the Windows 10 version of the 50331D course. So you can talk with your Netcom representative about that if you want to take full advantage of those skills. And as I said, we're giving you guys right up front a free part of the course already. The PowerShell tutorial part of it is yours to take away after this course. The course itself might actually be free to you. It is eligible for SATV, Software Assurance Training Voucher. Those of you who don't know what that means, it means that Microsoft might actually pay for it for you if you have an enterprise license with them. So that's something you might want to talk with your HR people about. The course comes with interactive simulations that simulate the labs as well, so you can take full advantage of those. There's also a 3-day version of the course, a bootcamp version of the course, but if you want everything, you can take the 5-day version of the course as well. All right, well, thank you very much for your time. Hopefully everyone was able to find something beneficial from our webinar this afternoon. I'm now going to turn things over to Tracy, and she will take us through the rest of our presentation. Tracy, are you there?
Thank you so much, Neil. That was very informative, and we do have a few questions, so let's get to those. One of our attendees would like to know, I'm still running on Windows 8.1 OS. Is BitLocker only available on Windows 10?
Very good news for you. BitLocker is available for Windows 8. It's even available on Windows 7, even though Microsoft doesn't support it anymore. So Windows 7, any implementation of Windows 8 and Windows 10, all of them support BitLocker.
Great. Next question is, any difference between BitLocker configuration in Windows 10 and Windows Server 2016?
Okay. The way that you implement and configure them is identical. It's identical. But there's one important point you might want to keep in mind. We use the AES encryption when we used our example. And some of you might know that there have been some recent hacks of that by some very sophisticated hackers. It's not something that everybody can do. However, there is a new version of encryption available for BitLocker on Windows 10 and Windows Server 2016 called XTS AES encryption, which overcomes that problem. So, for those of you who are really savvy and you've heard about those issues, Microsoft is on the ball, and there is an upgrade to AES encryption which overcomes those issues. And that option is available both on Windows 10 and on Windows Server 2016. Both of them supported. The older operating systems do not.
Great. I just want to let our attendees know that we have launched a quick poll, and we'd love to find out how many people might be interested in taking some additional courses and training. So please just take a few minutes before you sign off to fill out this very quick and informative poll. And we do have another question for you. This is in regards to direct access. Could you provide some examples of the benefits of the two-way access between the client and the computer you are remoting into?
Right, yeah, that's a great point. When you connect to your network remotely via VPN, the administrator on the network side on the intranet isn't able to fix problems on your computer. So, for example, one of the improvements in Active Directory and its resources in the past few years is that your network can actually apply antivirus fix and upgrades to your computer when you connect remotely. If you are using a VPN configuration, your network admin can't do that for you because the connection line is only one way. With direct access, he can do that for you. He can apply fixes, he can apply updates to your computer in that situation. But with a VPN connection with only one-way channels, fixes from the network to you are not possible.
Okay, we have a quick question. It says, what about Microsoft DOS? I guess pertaining to BitLocker, yeah.
Yeah, Microsoft DOS would still work if you want to use it on a computer that's configured with BitLocker. Remember, BitLocker encryption is transparent. All right. Now, if you were actually asking about DOS versus PowerShell, all of your DOS tools and DOS capabilities are available when you use PowerShell. You don't give up anything if you use PowerShell instead of DOS.
Okay, and Alan wanted to know if you can get a recorded version. Yes, you can. That will be coming to you within the next 24 hours via email. And Neil, any other final thoughts before we wrap it up today?
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot I was muted. No, that's it, Tracy. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you again, Neil, for that very informative webinar, and we want to let you all know that we do have a lot more informative webinars coming up, so please go to netcomlearning.com/webinars in order to register. And also please follow our social media pages to get the latest technology updates, and you can check us out on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Google+, which you can see in your chat window as far as our links. Thank you all for joining us today, and if you do come up with any additional questions, feel free to send them to webinar@netcomlearning.com at any time. We hope that you found today's webinar informative, and we look forward to seeing you back here with us soon. Feel free to tell your friends and colleagues about our webinars and other courses. Have a great day, everyone.